have the driver's side Yukon XL 2015 taillight, and we're going to try to fix the circuit board. There's two little spots up here at the top and at the bottom that tend to get little cracks. Those are the most common. There is ways that it can go out. There's a harder way that way it can go out, but this is the most common. So if your taillight isn't working, this is 90% gonna be your issue. So I have some tools that I'm gonna be using. I have two different types of solder guns, two different tips, just so I don't have to keep interchanging the tips. I have a square tip, which is the one I like to use the most, but sometimes you gotta get into some fine spots to use that pencil tip. I have some tweezers to get out the plastic, some wire strippers, and some needle nose pliers I'm gonna be using, as well as some circuit board solder. So up here at this little notch is where your first brake usually is, and down here right at the edge of this reverse light LED is where your second one is. Now a lot of people tend to have videos where they just open up a small little piece. They do it so that way it gets easier to reseal it up to keep the water out of it. But I did my passenger side, and it took me a long time until I opened up a big section to give myself some more room to actually work in there, because it is pretty tedious to get the little solder in there, the gun, and you might need an extra hand. I've had my wife help me put pieces in there just to, sometimes you just need that extra hand in there, and it's easier to have that more workspace. So we're gonna go ahead and open it up. All right, so we got our solder gun all nice and warm. We got our spots marked out where we're gonna cut. So we got a spot right where that, like I said, that LED tail light is, our backup light. I got a nice spot marked out with some black Sharpie here. We're gonna cut that complete square. Now a lot of guys cut that out and save it. I was really struggling trying to cut it out real nice. So what I really did was just melt it all up. And you'll see, I'm gonna show this side or one of the sides when I get it all out. So we're just gonna cut out that area. Like I said, it looks kind of big, but it's gonna give us a little bit more space to work in. So we're gonna go ahead and start melting these out. And all I'm doing is just letting it melt itself. I'm not putting a lot of pressure because that circuit board is right on the back end of this. We're just gonna do it real slow. This is gonna be the hardest process right here, getting this plastic out. If you get this plastic out pretty smooth, you'll be golden. The rest is just soldering. And by the way, I've never soldered in my life until today, and I thought it was a lot easier than it was. But as long as you have a solder gun that gets really hot, like I had an issue because I was using the pencil point tip, the heat wasn't going to the whole area I was needing. So I got the square tip right here, and as you can see, it's pretty dang hot, and it's melting it away pretty easy. When you solder as well, I use this one, and I heated up the actual board and then threw the solder to it, and it melted out and made a really, really good connection. When I was using that pencil tip, it was just bubbling up and not really sticking to what I wanted it to stick to. So if that's happening to you, it probably is because your solder gun is not hot enough, or you need a bigger tip to make your heat expand more areas. Also, if you have a solder gun, don't touch any of that metal, because I made that mistake and it hurts. So you see I'm just going real nice and slow, making my area all the way around. It's not going to look pretty. Mine didn't look pretty, at least. If you're a perfectionist, this is not the video to watch. Now I'm just going to slide it all the way around. I found a couple other guys show a video where they completely open the taillight, which if you'd like to do that, you can also do that. I actually like that video, like that way a lot better, but it's a lot harder, but it's really the right way to do it. When I watched that video, it made me completely understand and understand the way the boards work, which actually helped me because I had a couple hiccups on the other one. but we're going to show you how to not have those hiccups. Like I said, you don't want to be pushing very hard because you can break the board on the other end. Just nice and slow. It's going to be a long process. All right, so I have both sides open. I try to attempt to cut this whole piece out together. Doesn't really work well. As you can see, I actually had to clean up all this out of here to make it look a little bit better. And I don't think that plastic is going to make a big difference because we're going to be soldering here to clean this area up real well. On this side, I cut this in half and it took it out, and that side came out way better. Like I said, it's not the prettiest. There's a lot. I mean, if you want to get real tedious, you could take your time. I just fought the other one for a while, so I'm not trying to be here all day. But, I mean, unless you really care about the back of the looks, this is going to be hidden. So, if you could see kind of here, there is that crack. That isn't fully broken as this one is. This one is completely broken, and that's why our light doesn't work. This one is about to break. If this one might be losing connection too, I don't want to break it if it's not fully broken, so I'm not going to put the pressure on this one. I don't have to put any pressure really. It's broken. So what we're going to do is we're going to reinforce this one with solder. We're going to use a little bit of copper wire. We're going to go all the way from over here. There's a little divot. We're going to slide our little wire in there. We're going to solder from here all the way to here, the whole thing with copper wire, just to reinforce it first. Put the copper wire across. Same here. This one doesn't need it as much, but we don't want to put the light back on and have the problem like I did on the last one. So we're going to go ahead and do the whole thing. I'm going to start on the top because it's easier to work with. I'm going to reinforce it with some solder first. I use my bigger tip on this one, so I have more heat going to the whole thing. And like I said, I've never soldered before today, so I'm going to heat the actual circuit board up. And then I'm going to put, the tip's like a flathead screwdriver, so I'm going to place it there. And I'm pretty much, if anybody has ever welded, I'm going to run it kind of across the bottom. It burns really fast and it drips. So you got to kind of be quick. It's going to use a lot of solder. I mean, unless I've seen guys get the thicker one on YouTube, which is probably the best idea. You might get a couple burns like I have today. And you might be too hot as well. Like I think I'm too hot right now. You can kind of see the solder bubbling up there. That's what it's going to do. I'm going to use my smaller tip because I think just to get one started. This one's going to put heat in just a smaller area. I had the same problem with this top one earlier. I just could not get it to want to stick to the board. It was going everywhere else. It bubbles up and it just doesn't want to stick to the board. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a copper wire and hopefully that'll help it stick. All right, so as I'm doing this, I'm starting to realize that if your circuit board is hot, your solder sticks a lot better. Like I said, I've never soldered before, so bear with me. So I'm going to leave that little bubble there. Oh, maybe not. Okay. Now what I did, let it cool down a little bit. Solder tends to run in the direction it's going, so I got a little bubble here. I'm going to try to bring back. If you heat it up, though, solder just, it follows you. So if you have a flatter surface, it's a lot easier to keep your, there it goes. See how I just heated up the circuit board and that bubble kind of busts. Now I'm just going to walk it back and forth. We're just reinforcing that whole thing there. We still have to add our copper wire, but you see all that solder I'm adding, that's just going to give us more strength in there. All right, so this is 16 gauge wire. I just stripped it. I got the copper out of it, twisted up nice and tight. This is where your tweezers are gonna come in. I just borrowed my wife's tweezers. I might have to buy her some more, but so I'm gonna put this right across here, and all I'm gonna do is reheat up my solder. This is just so it'll grab it. We're gonna add more solder, but if you lay down that solder first and you reheat it up, heat up that copper. You heat up that copper, that solder heats up. Like I said, this is why I have two solder guns here. They're both real nice and hot, but the square one puts out heat quick for when I need to do things like this. Soldering is very tedious. I'm a welder, and this is way more tedious than welding. There we go. I got it stuck on there. Now I can get rid of my tweezers, and now I can go with my fine point in here. And I'm just going to tap down at the bottom of all this. Try to get my solder to grab that. Oh. You might have that happen a couple times. Like I said, I'm no expert. I just don't like paying thousands of dollars for somebody else to do a crappy job when I can learn, and I might be doing a crappy job here too. But I'm learning. Alright, we're just going to go ahead and add some here. Alright, so I just needed a little extra hand there, so that's why we stopped recording. Now, all I'm going to do is just keep adding solder here. I'm actually going to switch because I think the whole thing's in the way. Ooh, there is some fucking hot plastic on there. Alright. This is very, very tedious. This video I'm making for people who are not mechanics like myself, who aren't experts at things like this. Because a lot of YouTube videos go out there and they make a six-minute video on a 45-minute job and make it look so easy, and then you jump into something and you feel like I did. That's not what they made it seem like it was going to be. So I'm a normal person that has taken his car to several shops. Not specifically for this reason, but just in general. And have got nothing but screwed over. Had very crappy jobs, things like that. So I told myself that I would just attempt to fix my own stuff. And I've actually done a couple things, and a lot of people tell me, why don't you just do your own stuff and make videos for people? Because I normally figure out what's going on, and this one is really kicking my ass. So soldering might take a while, but if you heat up whatever you're putting solder on, Maybe that's how you're supposed to do it. I haven't done any research on soldering. I just kind of jumped into this because we were driving home last night and we had no lights. So I'm guessing the technique is heat up the metal you are soldering, not your solder. And it might take a lot longer than you think. All right, so we got this one all in place. As you can see, that copper wire laying on, it's completely covered in solder now. There's no copper showing. That's just going to give us a really good connection in here. And all we went is from that spot all the way across. That gave us a nice bridge. That, once it cools down, it's actually pretty solid. On the last one, I tried to shake it with tweezers just to make sure it wasn't going to jiggle out when I got on the road. And it was very, very, very solid. Now, I'm going to put a lot of heat on this because it takes a while. So I'm just going to sit here and put some heat to the circuit board. This is the one with the crack. So I want to kind of mess with it and get it as level as possible. You don't want to really pry on this stuff because you don't want to break it. I know if you have another crack here, I've seen on some other videos, sometimes you have a crack here and a hairline crack here, and they broke out the whole piece and just made this whole bridge again, just because I didn't want that to fall into the light and short yourself out. I don't know how common that really is, but I don't have that problem, so we're just gonna solder all of this together. The reason for soldering before you put on the copper wire is just to kind of put layers on it. You're giving yourself more strength on that board, because I don't want to have to come in here and do this again on my light, and I'm sure you guys will not either, let alone doing it, having to come back. But you don't want to be driving down the road and your light turn off. All right, so this is where I had to get that third hand in here to put this wire in. I've seen guys do it with one. Like I said, this is just a realistic video because I watched those videos and those guys did it, and I jumped into this and I started to regret it. So, but we pushed through. So I just add some solder, let it cool down, heat it back up. Make sure it's really nice in there holding, because you don't want to let that wire go. And it not be real solid in there. We're not going to be light on the solder. We're going to, there we go. And solder, you can kind of see it heating up, and then it'll just kind of like bubble pop almost and spread out really. Okay, so we're where we need to be. Now you don't want to make it touch here or here. You're just hitting here. And why is because this board, this is your hot, and it jumps over to make hot on the other side. You're positive. These are negative. So if you have solder connecting there and you go connect your light, you're probably going to burn it out. So that, if you see another video, I watched a guy, he explained the whole way the board is set up. And that's how I knew how to fix my last one, because I had a problem with my last one. Like I said, the solder might burn on there and then just kind of bubble up. If you sit there and put some more heat to it, it'll just kind of, and also whichever direction, it turns into liquid. So whichever direction it's leaning, it's going to go that way. But once it heats up, there you go. You got enough heat, and it expands and bonds itself to the motherboard. You might just go all the way around and do that. But now all we got to do is fill in the middle here. And we should be good. So we got her all soldered up. We're going to keep this video pretty raw just because I don't want to be like the rest of the mechanic videos or electrical videos that show everything and make it seem so simple. So we're going to go test this last light that I did. It took me a couple tests. So I'm going to, like I said, keep it pretty raw and show you exactly the things that might happen. This one might be perfect. Like I said, I did my last light, but my last light I had the top working down to here and then the bottom working to here. I came in, messed with it, and I got the top working and nothing else worked. Then I got the top working halfway down working, but the bottom didn't. And then I came in, did a fourth or fifth time. I don't remember how many times it even took. But then I came back and I had just the bottom work, and I was about ready to call it quits. And sat for about an hour and tried one more thing, and I ended up getting the whole thing to work. All right, so I didn't show how to take these out, but it's super simple. These are usually in here. Well, they're in here. There's 2 screws. They're torque 15 screws. This sits in here. I just stuck a screwdriver in there. It does seem like you're gonna break it, but these little clips actually do their job and really hold it in tight. So that sits in there. You pull it off. Once you pull it off, you take those screws out. You pull it straight out. There's this light right here. It's a pinch light, so you pinch it, pull it out. This one just sits in there, and then you turn it clockwise, locks in place. These to put it back in. This sits right in there. 2 holes, push it in and re-screw it in. I'm not gonna screw it in because we are gonna test the light. So my wife's gonna go ahead and turn it on, and blinkers always work, so that's not a sign that it's working. But that's a good sign right there. She presses the brake, and we got full lights on both sides. This is the other one I had a little bit more trouble with. Full sides, full lights. So a lot of people close them up right away just because I've never done this before. I am not going to close them up, but I will be looking for some electrical tape. I don't really care for electrical tape, but there's some other like electrical harness tape, I believe is what it's called. That works a little bit better. I'm going to clean those up and put that over there. I really want to, remelt some plastic over it just because I don't want water to get in there. But I will figure something out. But that's kind of up to you, what you care to do. I don't live in a place where it really rains, so that isn't a real big concern. It's 110 degrees outside right now, so it'll probably be like this for the next 4 months. So that's not really a big concern for me. All I really care about is at night I have light so I don't get ran into. But that is a pretty simple way to fix them. It's way cost efficient, but it is a little difficult. Everybody on YouTube made it sound like it was going to take me 5 minutes and it was going to work, but that was not the case. I've been doing this for about probably 2 or 3 hours altogether. Not terrible, but I was expecting to be working for about 10 minutes and I wasn't. So hopefully this helps you guys.